And they reckon that he probably saved, well, they say 75. The people he saved say that he probably saved 100. He says 50. And they average it out at about 75 people that he single-handedly rescued from the top of this cliff in Japan in the middle of the most brutal battle. And I think in life, we essentially have two choices on how we see life. Life is either chaos or it's hope. Either everything is moving towards chaos and nothing matters, nothing has any meaning, and ultimately everything is going to end. Or everything matters and everything has meaning and there's a purpose and there's a plan to everything and everything is heading towards something good. And this is the choice that we have to decide. And there's lots of people who go around and they'll go through life and they'll say, I just believe that there is no meaning, that this is just chaos. And this isn't a new thought. This has gone throughout history. The Babylonian creation myth said that creation began out of the death of the goddess of chaos. That she was killed and then out came the world, and that we are just chaos. And if that is true, then nothing matters and nothing we do has any meaning, and it's just senseless. And I've been around the world and I've seen these kinds of places where war has taken part, where wars happened. I've seen places where people have been trafficked and there is no hope. It just is. Or on the other hand, you could say, actually, I believe that there is something more. I believe that there is a purpose. I believe that there's a plan. I believe that even in the middle of all of this, that God is doing something. And I think that there's stories like this, which they call out to something in my soul, because they remind me that there's hope.
Come on.
That there are people who will do things that don't make sense. That aren't for them, that they will live sacrificially, will hurt themselves, they will go the extra mile because they believe that there's something more that's happening. About 18 months ago, I was really gripped by the scripture in 2 Peter. It says, they're talking about when Jesus comes back. And he says, to man's perspective, contrary to man's perspective, the Lord is not late with his promise to return, as some of us measure lateness, but rather his delay simply reveals his loving patience towards you, because he does not want anyone to perish, but all to come to repentance. This struck me when I read it, because I was always like, I want to reach some people. I want to focus, I want to reach that person, I want to do this. And Jesus seems to be saying something very different. He says it's not about reaching some people somewhere. He says it's about reaching everybody everywhere. Yeah. It's about taking this message of hope to everyone that we can. He seems to say that he is doing something which is going to change the whole way that we see everything ever since this moment. He's trying to say that everything matters. And this birthed this mission statement in our hearts. And this is how me and Emma would describe the mission of Soulcity Church. We would say that our mission is, and we've got a slide that was going up, our mission as a church is to everyone, everywhere. To share the life-giving message of Jesus with everyone, everywhere. You see, for me, it's not about reaching somebody somewhere. Yeah. It's not about reaching one buddy, one-where. This is about reaching everybody, everywhere. I'm not fussy about who I'm going to help.
Come on.
The story of Corporal Dobbs, he was rescuing the Japanese and the Americans at the same time. He didn't care. He just wanted to rescue everybody, everywhere. Wow. This isn't going to be a niche thing. This isn't going to be something where we say, we're going to just focus on reaching these people. We want to see the gospel go out to everybody, everywhere.
Come on. Yeah, it's good, man. Come on.
In your schools, in your workplace, in your family, on your street. We want to reach everyone we can, any way that we can. Yeah. Because we believe that everything matters. Yeah. We believe that this life has this immense, important purpose. And this became like the heartbeat of me and Emma when we started this church. You see, I get to meet lots of people. A lot of the time, I get to have lots of conversations about God. And it's really easy for me because I'll be in the hairdressers and they'll say, what do you do? And I say, I lead a church. And most people are like, what do you mean you lead a church? Like, you don't look like you lead a church. And I was like, yeah, I lead a church. And they're like, well, what church do you lead? And I'm like, oh, the one in the cinema. And they're like, what are you talking about, the one in the cinema? Like, that makes absolutely no sense. And I'd be like, yeah, I lead the church in the cinema. And then I'll say to them, do you believe in God? And I'll tell you, like, maybe 8 out of 10 people are like, well, I believe in something. I don't believe that this life has no meaning. I don't believe that it's just chaos and meaningless. I believe that there is purpose.
So good.
I believe that there is something we're going to. And then I'll say, well, why don't you come to church? And then they say, oh, church. Like, those are the guys who use caps lock on Facebook way too much, aren't they? or church, those are the guys who wear like sandals with their socks and cardigans, and they like herbal tea, which suddenly all of those things seem to come back in. But anyway.
Wait a minute.
But most people are like, church, they make no sense to me. And what I've come to realize is most people are searching for God, but they've not found a community that they can search for God with.
Wow, that's good.
They're just looking for people they can come alongside. And this became what we wanted to build here. We said, we want Soulcity to be an impact church, a church which is going to reach people for Jesus. A church which is going to go the extra mile, a church which is going to be sacrificial because we want to make a difference in somebody's life. We want to be that kind of... And so everything that we do, the way that we set up, the reason that we're in a cinema, the way that we just try and put everything else is to make it as easy as possible. So that somebody might be able to say, do you know, I don't have it all sorted, but those are some guys that I think that I could explore this with. And it's been one of my favourite things this last year is to see the amount of people who have absolutely no belief in God, who are happy to come and be part of this journey, who are happy to come and sit alongside us, who are happy to come and explore this. So the first thing we wanted was to be an impact church. The second thing we wanted was to be a multiplying church. We didn't believe that what God was going to do here was the end. We believed it was the beginning. We wanted to see more people. If we're going to reach everyone everywhere, we have to start multiplying churches. And so we had this passion. What if we didn't just plant one church? What if that would be like the seed of this explosion of life, this explosion of love that could just burst out and reach people in all different kinds of places, churches that would reach people who are the poorest of the poor, people who are the richest of the rich, people from all different kinds of backgrounds and cultures and languages, and people of all different ways of speaking. What if we could start all of these different kinds of churches? And it's not about creating something where it looks the same everywhere. What if we could start churches that have different skin and bones, but they all have the same heart and soul? So that we could reach more people. So we wanted to be an impact church. We wanted to be a reproducing church. And the third thing we wanted was to be a catalyst church. We had this idea, like if we truly want to see our nation transformed, if we truly want to see our world transformed, then realistically we're not going to do this by ourselves. We need to see God working in a greater way through everyone. And we thought, what if we could be a catalyst church? A church which would spark off other churches. A church which would raise up leaders who would go and start things that we had nothing to do about. What if the greatest fruit that God wanted to do wouldn't even be within our church? But we might never even hear about it. What if we were able to invest in people who would be just completely different cultures, different backgrounds, and just let go? I think that as a church, we want to be from day one thinking family. Yeah. We want to be thinking kingdom. We're not here to build our own movement, our own network, our own thing. We are here to see the kingdom of God advance everywhere. And so this became our heartbeat. This was what we wanted to do. This was what we wanted to start. And this last 12 months has been the birth of this. Like, if our church was a baby, we're like literally just at the starting to walk and falling over a lot stage. And I don't know if that kind of resonates with how you feel about church at the moment, but we'd be just in our infancy. And this last year has been inspiring. 12 months ago, we launched in a coffee shop. And there's about 20 of us. And, hey. And we thought, if we could stick Josh Green up front with a microphone, who knows what could happen? And so we launched in this coffee shop. And we started inviting people. We started saying, come and check it out, come and see. We started trying to make a lot of noise on social media. We started trying to let people know what was happening. And we saw people come. We saw people come and meet Jesus for the first time. Yeah. And that inspired us and that encouraged us. But by Christmas, we'd already outgrown it. And so we had to move venues. So we moved here. And I want to tell you that this was actually one of the biggest faith steps of my life. Because when we came here, we realized that we just simply could not afford it. We did not have enough money to pay for the rent. I mean, I looked at the tithes coming in and what they wanted, and it was pound for pound exactly the same. But then there's also a whole lot of other bills that we needed to pay. And there was this part of me that was like, working for a church, I'd quite like to be paid as well. And we were like, what does this mean? This is a huge faith step. How are we ever going to do this? And everything logical in me said, don't do it. And I knew that if I spoke to other mature Christians, they would tell me, don't do it. Look after yourself first. Look after what you've got. But something in my spirit said, we've got to do this. Because if we go to the cinema, we might be able to reach some more people. We might be able to see somebody else come. We might reach just one more person. And we went for it. And we launched in the cinema, and it was phenomenal. Yeah. And we did this thing called Sponsor a Seat, where we said to people, why don't we own a seat that isn't ours, and we pray for it over the year, and we invest some money, we pay for somebody else's seat. And actually, if you're here and you weren't part of this church in January, I'd like you to just stand up wherever you are. Everybody who was not part of the church in January when we moved to the cinema. What I want to show is that the reason you are here with us today is because somebody back in January said, you know what, I'm going to step up. I'm going to invest some money. I'm going to invest some prayer so that somebody else can come and be part of this. That's what happened. Thank you. Sit down. That is amazing. Thank you. And we had this idea that what if this could be something where the decisions that we make here could bless the next group of people, could invest in the next generation, could transform the lives of new people coming in. And this is how we started. And this year's been phenomenal, right? We've seen baptisms. Yeah, we've seen a church away weekends. We've seen 2 people baptized this year, and we're believing for double that next year. We've seen this. We had an amazing church weekend away where we just got to know each other so much better. It was so much fun. It was some of the things that happened there. These were the times when I felt like I actually went from just being church with people to being family with people. It was amazing. And we want to do another one this year coming up. And we did Soul Action Summer. We made this decision at the beginning of summer when everyone else seemed to be ramping down. We were like, we're going to push forward. We're going to go harder. And so we started going out and we started doing acts of kindness. We did this reverse offering where we took the offering and we said, you know what, we're just going to go and we're going to take the money that we would have normally kept in and we're going to give it out. We're going to bless people. And honestly, people's minds were blown. They were like, what is even happening? Why are you giving me free stuff? Why have you paid for my drinks? What is this gift? What are these flowers? And it was phenomenal to see God just working through us in these amazing ways. And at the end of the summer, we did Soul Fest. Yay. And it poured down with rain. And it was, by all accounts, it would have been a disaster. Except people stopped. Yeah. And people engaged. And people responded. And it became this highlight for me of the year. Yeah. This was my favourite day of the year so far. Or it would have been. Maybe actually my favourite day was the day after. When we saw teenagers come in and say, do you know what, I want to follow Jesus. You know, that actually trumped it by 1. But this has been an amazing year, and everything we have been doing has been from this heartbeat of we just want to reach people. We're not fussy about who they are. We're not fussy about their background. We just want to see God move in an incredible way. Yeah. And we don't even care if that's in our church. It can be through other people. It can be through other churches. We're not fussy who we inspire, who we equip. What we want to see is people meet Jesus. We want to see people who thought that they were blind discover that they can see. Yeah, I want to see people's lives change and transform. That's good. And that's my story. You know, that was my story. My story was I was far from God. My story was I was living for myself and doing everything that I could to make my life fulfilled. I just felt more and more empty. I felt more and more lost. And it was only the day that I had an encounter with Jesus that everything changed. And I don't need to be told where my life would have gone. of my mates back then, that almost all of them have been in prison, almost all of them have had hardships, and it's only by the grace of God that I can look and say, do you know what the difference between me and them is? That one day. And I made a decision, and I said, do you know what, I'm going to live a different way. Do you know what? I'm going to follow this Jesus. I don't even know what it looks like. I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to try. I'm going to trust. That's changed everything for me, and that's what I want to help other people to experience. That love of God in there every single day.
That's good.
I can't see the chaos and not go and do something about it.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of the time, my instinct is to get comfy, to enjoy what I've got, to appreciate where we are. Like, these seats are amazing, right? These are the most comfortable seats you'll have anywhere. Our church is already the best church ever, anywhere. Like, we are, like, we can say it, we know it's true. We're already awesome, and it would be easy for us to say, do you know what, we are happy where we are. We're happy as we are. And we could say, do you know what, we're family, we need to invest in each other. We need to bless each other. And yet, in the Bible, Jesus talks to Peter, and he says this thing. He says, Peter, you are the rock on which I'll build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Have you ever wondered what direction the church is moving in? A lot of us were like, we just want to stay somewhere. We want to get away from hell. We want a place where it's easy, where it's nice, where it's comfortable. Whereas Jesus says, do you know what? I believe that the church is a movement directly aimed at hell. It's a people who are going directly into the hardest places, and the gates of hell will not stop. This is not somewhere where we can be comfortable. We have to be a people who say, do you know what? Just one more.
Yeah.
If we can just reach one more person, if we can just do one more, then it'll be worth it.
Yeah, come on. It's good.
And this has been our heartbeat for the last year. And I want to share a little bit about what I see coming up in the next 12 months. Is anybody excited for what God's got coming in the next 12 months? And to share, I'm going to start with a story found in John 4. And this was actually a story that my small group were reading a few weeks ago. And we're reading it, and it just stuck in my head. And I just kept going round it again and again and again. And it's a really famous story in the Bible. It's a story of a woman at a well. And it starts off, John chapter 4, and it says this. Jesus knew the Pharisees had heard he was baptizing and making more disciples than John, though Jesus himself didn't baptize them, his disciples did. So he left Judea and returned to Galilee. So there's a situation where it's like, John's baptizing loads and Jesus is baptizing loads, and everyone's looking at them and it's like, you know, who's better, who's got more followers on Facebook, like, which one of them's more awesome? Like, John's got this awesome hipster thing going on, but Jesus seems to be doing lots. And Jesus was just like, you know what, don't compare us. I'm just going to get out of here. I'm going to go and do something new. I'm going to go and reach some new people. And it says in verse 4, he had to go through Samaria on the way. Eventually, he came to the Samaritan village of Sychar, near the field that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. This verse, contextually, is one of the most controversial verses in the Bible, for Jew at least. This is a verse that we read and we'll just fly straight by it. But this has so much more than it seems. You see, it says that Jesus had to go to Judea in the north, and he had to go through Samaria. But any Jew reading this would say, no, he didn't. Jesus didn't have to go through there at all. In fact, no Jews would have gone through Samaria at all. See, the Jews had this grudge against the Samaritans. They believed that the Samaritans were impure, that they lived unclean lives. They believed that their beliefs was all completely wrong. And they believed that if they even went into their land, it would taint them, that they would become more dirty. And this is like, they were so aloof, they were so segregated, that they'd be like, we're going to travel an extra 150 miles around Samaria through hot, dangerous desert territory just to avoid going into Samaria. And no Jew would go into Samaria because they might have to encounter a Samaritan. And so a Jew would read this, they'd be like, Jesus, you did not need to go there. You did not need to go through this land. And yet Jesus says that he had to go through Samaria. And I wonder what the disciples must have been thinking. Now, these are young Jewish guys, and they would have known this. They would have known that you don't go through Samaria. They would have got to the crossroads and started walking the other way and been like, Jesus, aren't we going this way? And then Jesus walks them directly into the place that they didn't want to go to. He aims directly at the place that they were looking to avoid. And he walks into Samaria. And I can imagine these guys as well, like walking in and looking around and being like, where are we? Like, what is happening? Who are all of these people? And they get to this village. They get to this well just outside of a village. And what does Jesus do? He sends the disciples away. He's like, guys, I'm hungry. I need some bread. Can you go and get some bread for me? And so there's these young guys, and they're now in this Samaritan village, walking there by themselves without Jesus. And they'd be like, what are we even doing here? This isn't the way. This isn't where we go. This isn't how we do this. I don't want to be here. And there'd have been all of these Samaritans who would have not liked the Jews either, giving them the look. And they'd be like, I don't want to be here. I want to be where there's singing and dancing. I want to be where there's fun. I want to be where there's happiness. I want to be where there's joy. I don't want to be here where there's people looking at me weird. People asking me why I'm dressed like this. People judging me. What am I doing here? And they came back. They found some bread and they came back. And they find Jesus at a well. And he's with a woman. And in this culture, in this day and age, a Jewish rabbi would never be alone with a woman. It was scandalous. You don't be alone with a woman if you're a man. And it goes even further than that, because most Jewish rabbis, they believed that it was a sin to even teach a woman. They would say, do you know what, don't waste your breath teaching a woman. Let the men teach it. We'll just teach the men. It was so abusive, so segregated, so sexist. And they come back and they see Jesus at a well teaching a woman. But it's not just a woman. It's a Samaritan woman. But it's not just a Samaritan woman. It's a sinful Samaritan woman. She symbolizes everything that they would have avoided. Everything that they would have wanted kept away from. They see Jesus sitting there talking to her. And she's having this incredible conversation. She's having this amazing encounter with the Son of God. And they've just got to this moment of the conversation where he's talking about the Messiah. And she looks up and he reveals himself for the first time. He says, I am the Messiah. And who does he reveal himself to? The woman. The Samaritan woman. The sinful Samaritan woman. Who'd gone from relationship to relationship. Who'd gone from hard time to hard time. And many commentaries would say that the reason she was even at that well at that time was so that she didn't have to encounter people. She didn't have to feel judged. So that she could just go and she could be at the well by herself. And she has this moment of encounter with Jesus. And then she looks up and what does she see? The eyes of 12 young bigots looking at her. I wonder how many times do people come and they have an encounter with Jesus and they look up and they see the eyes of the church looking at them, judging them, condemning them. How is it that the church has always led the way in segregation? That the church has always been the place where people are most divided? And yet it should be the place where we're welcoming people from every background, from every history, saying, do you know what, you can come here. You don't have to have it all sorted. You don't have to have it all right. This is the place where you will find love. Do you know, there's not that much in the Bible we're commanded to do, but one thing is love. This is the place where you don't even have to believe to belong. You don't have to have it all sorted to come here. But we want you to be here so that you can have an encounter with Jesus. As I look forward to this year, I believe that one thing that God is saying is that we're going to have to learn to encounter, to advance into the very thing that we wanted to avoid. That the conversations that you never wanted to have, that God is going to lead you directly into those. The people you never wanted to speak to. The places you never wanted to go. That you're going to advance into what you thought you would always avoid. I think that we need to try some stuff that nobody's tried before. To see if we can reach some people that nobody's reached before.
Yeah, come on.
I think that we need to make more mistakes. We need to go places, and we need to be more like those disciples. That this is going to be a year, and there's going to be moments when we're like, God, I don't even know where I am. I don't even know what is happening here. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. But I know that I'm following you.
Yeah.
You know you're following Jesus when you no longer have it all figured out anymore.
That's good, bro.
When you're pushing the limits. When you're saying, do you know what? I have to rely on you. Because I'm in a foreign land. You know, the only way that this gospel message is going to advance is when we learn to advance into places we wanted to avoid. What's phenomenal is his message that Jesus says in Acts 1 verse 8, it says, the Holy Spirit, the power will come upon you, and you will go from Jerusalem to Judea to Samaria, to the ends of the earth. What's he saying? He's saying that the way that we go and we reach the people who are never being reached, that we turn what happens into church into a movement, is when we advance into the place we want to avoid. We all have to go through that comfort zone. And this woman, she's blown away. Like she's encountered Jesus and has changed absolutely everything. And what I find is just incredible, is that Jesus stops for her. You know, Jesus should have gone the long way around. Jesus should have gone to Judea, where he was trying to get to, or Galilee, where he was trying to get to. And yet he stops just for a woman at the well.
No.
A woman who by all accounts he shouldn't have spoken to, a woman who was sinful. And he stopped for the one. I live such a busy life. I have so many priorities. I have so much work to do. Do you know what? It takes me so long to write my talk that I don't have time for you. It's crazy. It's all back to front. And Jesus stops for the one. He doesn't just stop for a conversation by the well. What he says is, you know, we're gonna camp here. We're gonna stay here. We're gonna have conversations. We're gonna have meals. We're gonna put everything else on hold. We have to learn how to stop for the one. Prioritize. And often it isn't the one that you want to stop for. You know, I want to stop for my son. I want to stop for my boys. I want to stop for my wife, because those relationships mean a lot to me. But what if the one that God is calling you to stop for is the uncomfortable one? Is the one who wasn't on your journey and you had to change your journey to go and reach them? Is the person who you don't easily connect with, the person who rubs you the wrong way? What if that's the person that God is calling you to stop for? The person who doesn't get it first time. You know, I want to change the world yesterday. It doesn't happen. We have to take the time. And this woman, her life is completely transformed. That one encounter with Jesus changes everything. She goes back to her town, and what does she say? She says, come and see. Come and see. Come and see this man. Come and see Jesus. Come and see. You won't believe what he said to me. Come and see. And they come, and they see. And they say, do you know what? We'll believe now, not even because you said, but because we met Jesus for ourselves. This woman becomes the first ever evangelist. And the Bible stops there, but actually Christian tradition follows her story on and on. And she's known as Saint Fotini. And she goes from here, and she can't stop telling people about Jesus. She says, come and see. You have to come and see. You have to meet this Jesus who I just met. She tells her family, and she trains them, and they go out and they start telling people. And she begins this entire movement by just going, reaching just one more person. You need to meet this Jesus. Just one more person. You need to meet this Jesus. Just one more person. She couldn't stop. She couldn't stop. She reached so many people that the Emperor of Rome asked to meet her. That he was that worried about the movement that she was starting that he had her executed. Thousands, thousands. Through this one woman that everyone else would have written off. Everyone else would have said, well, you could do it through these guys, but definitely not her. And yet she becomes the one who starts it. She becomes this woman who's on a level with all of the apostles in the early church. But just one more. Just one more. Do you know, I believe that every movement starts with one person who refuses to let go of a truth. That Jesus changes everything. You know, when we talk about Jesus, we're not talking about, hey, this is something which is just going to make my life better. We're talking about somebody who literally takes us from death, brings us to life.
True.
Changes everything. Just one more. Just one more. And this has become the heartbeat for what I believe God's going to do in this next year. Just one more. Can we just put on the slide the vision? I've been praying so much about this and saying, God, what do you want to do in this next year? And this is my prayer. By 2020, we reach just one more. You see, a year ago, there was about 20 of us who met. And over the last year, we have helped 18 people come back to God.
Wow. Come on.
18 people in the last year. I know churches who didn't see that in the last decade, and we've seen that in the last year. And it's provoked this question. What if this happens again? And again? And again? What if we just saw one more? What if we just saw one more? Again and again and again. And so I wondered, we're now here, there's about 50 of us in our church. What if we all just reached one more soul this year? Just one more. We all said, I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to pray. I'm going to look for that one. I'm going to advance into some place that I wanted to avoid. And I'm going to reach just one more. What if, at the moment, we've got 4 small groups? A humble beginning. What if our small groups all started just one more small group? Small groups for us are going to become this context where we do most of our discipleship. This is going to become the place where we invite people on. I would just love it if this time next year, our small groups are made up 50% of people who've known Jesus for less than a year. Could you imagine how that would change the culture of the way that we even do small groups? Yeah. Could you imagine how that's going to put a different emphasis on us as we go to small groups? What if we each reached just one more person and we started just one more small group per small group? And then, what if we started just one more location? And for me, this is the craziest one. Because I don't have somebody who I've trained up to go on church plant. I don't have resources that are going to be able to be used to start somewhere else. But what if we said, we're going to believe that God is going to do this? We're going to believe that with a step of faith, He's going to do something beyond any of us could have imagined. Because let's be honest, that has been the story of our last 12 months. Yeah. So why wouldn't it be the story of our next 12 months? Yeah, what if we said, we're just going to put this out there. We're going to see who God speaks to. Yeah. We're going to see who He raises up. We don't know what this is going to look like. But we believe if we can get to more locations, if we can start new styles, we might reach some people who have never been reached before. Yeah. You know, in the beginning of the Bible, there's the book of Genesis, and it starts with the command to humanity. And what God says to humanity is so, so simple, and yet so, so challenging. He says, be fruitful and multiply. Like, bear in mind, He's just spoken to the sky and it's split. He's just spoken to the land and it's changed. This is the power of the Word of God for our lives. He says, be fruitful and multiply. And do you know what? I read this wrong all the time. I think what He says is, be fruitful, then multiply. You know what? I'll be rich, and then I'll be generous. Do you know what? I'll have all of my theology right, and then I'll share. Do you know what? I'll get myself together and then I'll invite somebody to church. But he doesn't say be fruitful, then multiply. He says be fruitful and multiply. What if the reason you stop growing is because you've stopped multiplying? What if we don't need to have it all together? What if we don't need to fill this place for us to say, we are going to take what we have and we're going to multiply it? Because we want to see God move in a way like he has never moved before. And I am convinced that if every single one of us gets this, we get this heartbeat, we get this in our DNA, we're going to see God move like we've never seen him before. And not just in Stockport. It's not going to just be a church that's going to impact Stockport. It's going to be a church that's going to reproduce. It's going to be a church which is going to inspire and spark off other churches, far beyond we could have imagined. I was thinking yesterday, imagine if we put on something amazing here and we reached 1,000 people. Like, that'd be good. I'd like that. I'd love it if we reached 1,000 people. And imagine if we reached 1,000 people every single year. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. 20 years, we would have 20,050 people. And that would be awesome. Like, who would love it if we reached 20,000 new people for Jesus? Anybody think that'd be awesome? Yeah. That would be pretty immense, I think. But then I thought, imagine if we each reached one person. What if we could reach and teach one person? So imagine this. Imagine you reached one person this year and you teached one person. The teachers are looking at me like that's a horrific use of the language, but it rhymed. What if you could reach and teach one person? Well, then it would change. You see, we've got 50 people now. Next year we'd have 100, and then 200, and then 400, and then 800. Do you know by that 20th year we'd have reached every single person in our nation?
Wow.
If we just reach and teach one. 25 years, there's no one left in the world who does not know Jesus. By reaching and teaching one. You know, if we do it the first way, each of us have to reach 400 people each. I'm not that charismatic. I'm not that convincing. I'm not that good at anything. I cannot reach 400 people. And I hate to break it to you, with the exception of maybe one of you, not many of us are going to reach 400 people by ourselves. But if we reach and teach 20 people, and you've changed everybody in our country. 25 people. And Jesus' words, suddenly, they're true. So I don't want to stop. I don't want to fall short. I don't want to get to the end of my life and say, do you know what, if I look back, if I'd have just done something differently, if I'd have just been inspired maybe in a different way, if I'd have just stepped into that place that I wanted to avoid, I could have made a difference. I don't want to get there and realize that all it took was 20 people. I want to say, do you know what, I'm going to push this year further than I've ever pushed. And I don't think that this is huge. I think I can actually see God working through me for one person. I have faith for one. I believe that God can do that through every single one of us. Yeah. And maybe you're here and you're like, do you know what? I'm not charismatic. I don't know what I'm doing. I want to challenge you. You don't have to be having all of the answers. You don't have to be full of fruit to start multiplying. This woman, she had one encounter. Do you know, some days the best I can do is, do you know what? Just come and see. I don't have words for that. I don't know the answer to that question. Just come and experience it. Because you talk about God, and I don't think he is the person you're talking about. You talk about church. I don't think the church is what you think it is. Just come and see. Just come and see. What if we all reach just one more? What if we all taught one more? I want to challenge you this year to not just say, yeah, but to set this in stone. And to say, do you know what? I'm going to look for that one.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep searching. I'm going to pray. I'm going to dedicate this year to praying that God will send me to the place I didn't expect so that I could reach that one.
Yeah, that's good, man.
I'm going to commit myself to reaching one person this year. And I'm also going to commit myself to teaching one person this year. And maybe you're like, I don't know how to do that. I don't want to go up to someone and say, hey, can I mentor you because I'm awesome and you're not. Like, that's awkward. But I'm not saying like that. But what I'm saying is, so you could choose just one more person. You could put your arm around them. You could say, hey, mate, can I buy you a coffee? That's all that it looks like. Can I buy you a coffee? Hey, how are things going? I want you to know I'm praying for you every single day. What's going on in your life? If you don't know what to even talk about, 2 fantastic questions. My father-in-law gave me these, and I think they're brilliant. Just say, what are you reading in the Bible, and what are you doing about it? Make that the conversation. Hey, what's God speaking to you about from the Bible? And how is that changing your life? Just keep having that conversation. And what you'll find is God starts to direct their footsteps. That God starts to use them through you. That actually the fruit that happens doesn't just have to come from your life. That you start seeing fruit through the people you invest in as well. And it multiplies. And it multiplies. And it multiplies. Just one more. Just one more person. Can I ask the band to come up? And my prayer. And I don't know many churches who have reached an equal number of people to the number that they started with in 12 months, but we did that this year, pretty much. And I believe if he's done it before, he can do it again.
Yeah.
And so if you believe that too, I want to ask you in a moment to just stand. And when you stand, I'm going to pray for you. Because what I have learned in the last 12 months is that nothing has happened here because of me. Everything has happened because of God working through me, through my teams, through people I don't even know. That it's all come through God. And if you're here and you think, do you know what, I can't start a movement. I don't know the words to say. I don't know how to do this. Then, do you know what, I'm right here with you. But I believe that this happens when we stand and we say, do you know what, God, I want to be counted. I want to go for this. I want to make a difference. I want to be part of what you're doing. And if that isn't you, there's no shame. And if that's not the kind of church that you want to be part of, then there's absolutely no shame in that either. But that's the church that we're going to be. And if you want to say, God, I need your anointing this year like I've never needed it before. I need you to guide me like I've never needed you before, because I want to see you move. I want you to feel me. Then I'm going to just ask you, wherever you are right now, to just stand up. Just stand and just put your hands out in a posture. And I want to pray. And maybe you're here and you're like, I'm not even part of this church. I'm not even going to be here in 12 months. And that's fine, because we want to inspire. We want to see God use you wherever you go. I just want to ask you, wherever you are, to just close your eyes and hold your hands out. And God, I want to pray for your anointing. I want to pray for your direction. I want to pray that you'll send us into the places we wanted to avoid, that you'll give us ideas that have never happened before, that you'll speak through us. I want to pray that you show us that one more person. I want to pray that you give us courage. I want to pray that you give us the right words. We would see the blind see. We would see the lost saved. We would see the dead come to life. God, I believe that you are starting a movement, and that it begins right here with each and every single one of us. I want to pray that this year will be a year when we reap where we have not sown. Where we just go to places and there is favor. That we see lives transformed. God, I pray in 12 months' time we'll be standing here celebrating that our vision was too small. That you reached far more than we expected. that you did far greater things than we could have imagined. That when we put our lives in your hands, God, this is going to be a year when we make ourselves slaves even though we're free. When we become all things to all people so that we can save some. God, speak through us. Speak to us. Use us. Challenge us. Send us. We are here for you. And we will go for you. In the words of the prophet Isaiah, here am I. Send me. Send me, God. As we worship God, I want to challenge you to spend time right now with God to talk this through. This isn't going to be one of those things where we're like, oh, it was a nice idea in the moment. This is a line in the sand. And this is for you to speak with God. Because this isn't me making it happen. This is you following Jesus for you, through you. This is each and every one of us having that step, that encounter, that relationship, believing that God will work through us. So we're going to sing praises, but take some time. Just let the anointing speak to you.
Who am I that